Throughout time, it's been evident that men's professional sports have drawn more interest than women's professional sports. There are many theories as to why this is the case, but the answer is simple. It all has to do with the way that we were socialized as children. From the very beginning, it is introduced to us that there are major differences between the genders. Blue is for boys, and pink is for girls. The color of a newborn's crib, room, etc. may seem insignificant. However, it is a visible way to distinguish between the two. As we grow, what children are given to play with differs between boys and girls. Boys are given trucks, guns, and sporting equipment, and are expected to play rough, while girls are, in a way, tied to the house. In other words, girls are expected to stay in and be tidy. While boys play outside, rip their pants, and come home covered in mud, it is simply written off as boys will be boys. Because of this, the accepted norm for boys is grunting, shouting, pushing, running, climbing, and rolling around in the dirt outside. It is quite acceptable for boys to roughhouse as they age and to have the natural urge for physical activity. Girls, on the other hand, are socialized to be quieter, neater, daintier, and in general more subdued. While boys go outside and play in the rain, mud, and woods, it is simply accepted that those kinds of activities are just not for girls. In the same way, if a boy was to play with a doll as a child, it would be considered strange by many, seeing as how girls are typically associated with dolls. As we look at the sports industry from a gender standpoint, it is clear that it is male-dominated. Because of the way that men and women are socialized from birth, men tend to be more physical and women to be more proper. This trend continues in the sports world. If it is encouraged that boys be more physical and outdoorsy as children, wouldn't it be that they were encouraged to do the same as they got older? Simply, males are more used to physical activity and being outside, while females are used to watching and exhibiting polite behavior. As this trend continues, a woman would normally be seen as strange to participate in such physical activity as a profession. That is why, up until recently, women's professional sports have been a very small market. People are more used to men participating in sports, and therefore it makes more sense that men's sports are more popular than women's.
So we all know that men and women are physically very different, right? Well, most. And that's a good thing. One place that it really shows up, though, is in sports. Dr. Marcy Bothwell is back to give us some background information as to why that is the case. And it's not the obvious reasons that you might think. Right, Marcy?
Well, it's a little bit of the obvious things. But it's not like I sit around and watch NASCAR all the time, because I don't. But I saw Danica Patrick, and I was like, you go, girl, you know, really compete with the guys.
Yeah.
You know, they say men just do have more upper arm strength, and one of the other reasons they have just bigger cardiovascular systems. It's about 10% more. But I don't see why.
Is that because their hearts are bigger?
Their hearts are bigger, and we've talked about it before, that during the teenage years that testosterone hits, and they just get more hemoglobin. And if you look across the differences between men and women, we've caught up a lot, but we're still got about a 10% gap between the elite women athletes and the elite men athletes.
Now explain, because most people know all this, but explain why this is important, because there's one point.
Well, at one point, okay, I'm going to channel Karl Rove here a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
It's a conservative
Hold that
station.
up so my camera can catch it.
All right, all right. Okay. So back in 1908, when the Olympics first started, this is women, this is men.
Okay.
We did not have the same. We were in dresses, for God's sake. We were in these long dresses. How are we supposed to compete like that?
I know. Let them wear the dresses.
You know, high heels and long skirts. And we just didn't have the opportunities. The men, frankly, just wouldn't give them to us. And so over time, this average has changed. And so now, this is 1920s. So now we're in the 2013. So this is a normal curve, okay? This is women and this is men. So we're still here and here. And this gap is about 10% of the elite athletes. But what you do see is, look at this cross here. We are making gains, okay? And, you know, the gap may go like that or something like that. But women are making gains. And it doesn't mean you have to be masculine or take the testosterone like these German women.
You don't have to look like a man?
You do not have to look like a man.
That's a good thing.
Well, yeah. Frankly, women's sports are more popular now. The women's tennis circuit is much more popular than the men's tennis circuit.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's because they're cute out there in skirts, okay? And our sports...
I don't think that... I don't know if that's the reason why.
Well, one of the things is that women's sports are just as strategic. They are just as interesting. They are just as electrifying. And people are starting to recognize that.
However, there's double standards in contact sports. Like my daughter plays lacrosse and played field hockey. Now, men's lacrosse, they've got the helmet. You can do, you know, you can bash the guys, whatever. You can't do that. It happens, but you're not supposed to do it. You get fouled. And I think that's crap. If they allow it for the men, allow it for the girls, and just pat them up.
Well, we've talked about that CTE injury before. I think we ought to not allow it for the men as we not allow it for the girls. I mean,
just have the proper equipment, you know?
Right.
You need to develop the proper equipment.
Right. But girls are channeled early on, even before this testosterone surge, into more female-type sports. And I think the important thing is we don't have to necessarily always go against the guys. We can have our own exciting sports arenas within our own level. I mean, we are just as exciting and fun to watch as the men. I mean, seriously. I think so.
Too bad not the rest of America, population feels that way, because let's put it, I mean, it's obvious that male sports get all the money, all the advertisement money, the fan base. I'm sorry, Marcy, but
they do.
Money talks.
But we are making inroads. I mean, since Title IX passed, we are making inroads. We've got women first, women baseball players. We had a woman kicker, and the other thing that sparked my interest in this is the girl wrestler, and then Danica. And
do you think, well,
women.
Danica got the #1 spot for the first time in history, female, right, in the race. She still came top 10, but
she was actually #3, and then the teammates came around.
What happens at the end, Marcy? Sorry, she didn't cut the mustard. But my point is, are you going to tell everybody else it's because she doesn't have the arms, the bone structure, the muscular structure to compete with the men?
Absolutely not. She is one of these exceptions.
Okay, good.
She's one of these people that can compete with the
men.
And
she's a peanut. Like, she's thin. You would think that she would need.
She's like 5 foot something and is just a powerhouse.
Yeah.
And frankly, she's really smart, and she uses her brains.
So do you think we're changing, evolving into another species at some point that will be stronger, that will be able to compete with men more?
Well, they anticipated in 2031 that we would be on par and be able to compete head-to-head with them. But the fact of the matter is,
who
it's
anticipated that? That's just ridiculous.
Well, they didn't think it ridiculous then. But, we're just not going to, most of us are not going to be able to go head-to-head with the men, because we just don't have the upper arm strength and the cardiovascular strength.